It's now or never for the 2024 Denver Nuggets after Nikola Jokic secures his third MVP. The Nuggets face the mustest win of mustest wins in Game 3 versus the Wolves on Friday night. We'll talk about what the most important thing for Denver is going to be in this game. What happens if we come out of the weekend with the Nuggets having been eliminated in a sweep, plus Game 3 predictions. All that and more on Swipe and Gripe here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be with you. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm co-host of Locked On NBA on Tuesdays. I'm joined by Swipe Cam. You can find him on YouTube at SwipeCam on, not at SwipeCam, but youtube.com/SwipeCam on YouTube and on Twitter. You should check out Swipe's show yesterday celebrating Nikola Jokic's third MVP because Swipe does a really great job of kind of showcasing the historical status of what's happening. And like, he's really good about being able to kind of comment on history as it's going. Like, I don't have that kind of perspective. I have a hard time of seeing the forest for the trees. You need to check out that episode and celebrate Nikola Jokic. Check out yesterday's episode, which you can find at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. It's a great channel. You should check it out. We have so many subscribers, and you can join the live show with folks like Austin and Eamon B and Big Honey's in here. Rob Sheldon's, Dr. Van the Strand's hanging out with us. Good stuff here. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Friday as we preview Game 3 between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. We'll talk about the most important thing for the Nuggets in Game 3. We'll talk about what happens if they come out of this weekend without a win. If they get swept, what happens with the organization. Adam talked a little bit about that in Wednesday's show, but I want to get into a little bit more of it. And we'll get some Game 3 predictions as well headed into Game 3 on Friday night. Swipa, it's Friday, man. How you doing?
I'm good. It's going to be an interesting night for sure. You know, we will definitely see how they decide to come out. I'm curious to see what the energy is going to be like to start the game. And then once the physicality ramps up as the game goes on, how things change, how things adjust, how they respond. So definitely a tilting point for this regular season and this version of the Denver Nuggets. So we will find out.
This episode today is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. All right, I think you kind of hinted at there, but I am kind of curious as to your thoughts on this. What do you think is the most important thing for Denver in Game 3 on the road versus the ravenous Minnesota Timberwolves?
Composure. They looked unraveled the last time we saw them. They look frazzled. They looked like a team that had not been on the stage before. Once they got the whistle not going their way in the first quarter, they just looked like a team that was so discombobulated with the physicality and the lack of calls and the fact that things were not going as easy for them on the other end. And they have faced very stiff competition before, but this matchup in particular, plus Jamal Murray's ailing calf, I think it's put them in a very precarious situation, and they just did not handle that. They're going to be in Minnesota. The Wolves fans are going to be hungry. They're going to be wanting to get this sweep. Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert and Karl Towns, they're playing with extreme confidence. They're 6-0 to start the playoffs so far. They're in an advantageous situation back at home, and they would love to send a message to the rest of the league that we're going to sweep the champs. And they have all that on their table. And so this should be an opportunity for them to be composed, to play within their framework of basketball, but there's also some adjustment for them to make. But ultimately, Game 1 for me is more indicative of where both these teams are. I think that the Nuggets end up losing that game by 7. They weren't able to close out down the stretch because their defense was not good enough. Joker, obviously, is the prime suspect. Jamal, they're going to have to get to the second half, and they're going to have to lock into what they're supposed to do. And I think them getting a win would be just as important for their overall confidence, I think, as it would be for kind of slowing down this momentum the Wolves are facing right now. So most important thing is composure, because you can't win at this level unless you have poise about you and unless you don't let the moment rattle your emotions, and you have to be in control of yourself. I talked about this a little bit earlier this week, but there's a difference between responding and reacting to something, and the Nuggets did nothing but react when it came down to game 2. They have to respond, and they have to articulate what's happening on the court, regardless of how they feel, and then subsequently be able to play through the adversity they're going to experience.
Yeah, good stuff there. I think the mental side of this is really important, and how they respond. I think that stuff does absolutely matter in this game. I think it matters a great deal as far as like that's what we're all kind of wondering is like, are they going to be like, are they just going to wilt like this? Are they just going to fall apart? Mine is a little bit more basketball sided, and it plays a little bit into what you're talking about though. They need to make contested shots. They need to make contested threes in particular. Okay. Make shots is great basketball analysis, I know, but the problem here is that the Nuggets have spent much of the past 6 playoff series they played in with this core finding easy stuff. Is that they were able to exert so much pressure on the opponent that they were able to find easy stuff. I started thinking about this a lot because of what LeBron kind of talked about on Mind the Game, and he talked about it a little bit in regards to Joker. But it's kind of the difference in guys that control the game and don't, is that they're able to find ways to kind of to find the easy stuff. And Joker's always been so good at that, right? Like, what a great pass for an easy dunk. What a great pass for an open 3. What a great pass for an easy layup. That's gone. It's not coming back. The Wolves are too good defensively. Now, the Nuggets have beaten great defenses. They've beaten the pants off of great defenses over the past 2 years. And part of the reason that they've done that is because, yes, they put so much pressure on them, they created those easy things, but they also had the confidence to knock down contested shots.
Yeah.
It is time to accept and embrace that. You can't keep working trying to find the easy stuff. This starts with Joker, because he's just going to have to be like, this is a tough shot. I need to make this. Right. And we thought he was past this, but he has struggled in the series with making that decision. It's Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon stepped up to the plate for that in game 2.
In the first quarter,
he was like, okay, they're daring me. I'm going to punish them. I'm going to make these threes. I'm going to actually challenge them and be aggressive here. And AG's plus minus is not indicative of how he has played in this series. I don't think he's played awesome, but I don't think that the plus minus is on him in this instance. They need MPJ to just rise and fire. Don't get because a lot of this is, if you notice, the Wolves are so good at closeouts. You saw Michael Porter Jr. record scratching. And when I say record scratch, what I mean is that's a term that describes you have a shot and you just hesitate and it's, and then he's going into dribble, sidestep, worse shots. Just rise and fire, man. They are showing hard at you in order to get you not to take that shot. You just have to rise above and knock them down. KCP, got to hit those shots.
Yeah.
Peyton Watson, got to hit those shots. Christian Brown, got to hit those shots. Justin Holiday's made those shots. That's why Justin Holiday's had a good series. This is Justin Holiday's I'm shooting. I'm not going to overthink this. There's a closeout coming. I'm taking it. You can't second guess. You have to embrace, I got to take these contested shots. I got to make these contested shots. If you go down like that, man, tip your cap. That's, on the road, tough environment. But you have to embrace this and stop trying to work for easy stuff. It is not going to be easy anymore.
Yeah, this really, it's just an eerily feeling to the 22 playoff versus the Warriors. They just look completely outmatched those first 2 games. They just didn't, the physicality, Draymond talking, Steph Curry was running around everywhere, Jordan Poole was going off, Andrew Wiggins looked like he was just clamping everything up. Joker was averaging 24, 10, and 5 or whatever, shooting 40-something% from the field the first couple games. But then eventually they settled into the series, and that's when the series got much closer. And so I'm hoping that Joker, just like he made a decision in that series that I'm just going to do what I have to do to make this as good of a game and as tight of a game as possible, they're just going to have to do that. I think Jokic is at this point now where you have to dictate terms, and they're not going to give you easy shots. You're going to have to deal with a lot of different people. You're going to have to deal with, whether it be Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniel showing hands, Anthony Edwards showing hands, Nickeil Alexander-Walker showing hands, Mike Conley showing hands, Kyle Anderson even. You're going to have to deal with that. So ultimately, definitely going to have to push through that and just get those shots up, feel confident, do what you got to do, set the tone. But again, defensively though, Matt, that's the question. Like, you have to lock in on that end. Like, the Nuggets can't be giving them free runs to the rim. They can't just give them access to any quality shot that they want. And on your closeouts, you got to close out. No standing around when Karl-Anthony Towns is standing at the top of the key by themselves, or Naz Reid. Again, both Cat and Naz are hitting a lot of shots right now to open up the playoffs in the first 6 games. So they're definitely going to need some shot variants to go their way, especially for Cat. But this is going to be about making sure that you're locking in to your defensive principles. But again, I do think shot making is important, but I think a lot of this confidence comes from they just can't get stops when they need to get stops. And so you just can't continue to let them get you in all these disadvantageous situations, from Mike Conley penetrating, and next thing you know, AG's collapsing off Cat. You just can't do it. You got to stick to your principles, stick to your keys, stay in front of your man. And I think, too, they just haven't met the energy level. Like, the Wolves on every possession are selling out for every possession. The Nuggets, on the other hand, is too hit or miss right now. I think a lot of that leads back into confidence overall as well.
On the other side, all right, so if Denver doesn't pull this off, if they get swept this weekend, what happens? Talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets. Let's talk about PrizePicks, the absolute most fun way for you to play daily fantasy sports. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. They offer injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you get a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, PrizePicks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Just download the app and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. It's highly encouraged, and you can go ahead and use PrizePicks. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We're also brought to you today by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down that volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Second segment here with Swipe Up with you on a Friday. Glad to have you with us. Weather's turning here in Colorado. Very excited for that. It's going to finally get warm. We're past the cold. I think we had our last cold days here in Colorado for the season. All right. So if they, let's say they lose on Friday night, and if they lose on Friday night, look, I think a big reason why no team has come back from 0-3 is because no team has come back from 0-3. And what I mean by that is, if you lose that third one, you're just like, okay, we can't. We just don't have it. There's no way for us to beat this team. Now, the most nugget thing might be for them to lose this game and then come back. But if they get swept, that is a dramatically different result. And it shows you how fast these things can change, because you go from going 16-4 and having a dominant run to the NBA title to now the questions become, to me, the order is Malone, Jamal, supporting cast. Calvin Booth did not hire Michael Malone. Typically, front office are new front offices are very rarely in the camp of the incumbent coach. If you lose in 4 and the way that they ended the regular season, there will be a question of whether or not Malone, after a decade almost with this team, has actually worn out and the players have tuned him out. That is my first thought when I get to this. I don't think that's fair. I have been a Michael Malone advocate. I am a guy that believes in how good Malone is and what he's contributed to this team. But that will be, I think, the first consequence is a re-examination of Malone if they're swept this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's probably, for me, a bridge too far, given they just won the title last year. I don't think that's Malone would be the fallout. If anything, I think this is the fallout on Calvin Booth, just because he's the one that put the team together. Now, he did say media day that he's trying to win 3-6, meaning titles, or 3-7, meaning titles. So he wants to develop a younger bench that has the opportunity to grow into the future. And as he stated, he is the steward or the architect of Nikola Jokic's legacy. So he realizes he has potentially a top 10 player all time. He wants to give him as many titles and his best team as possible. I think this year, you and I have gone back and forth in funny ways and serious ways about this bench. They are just quite simply so underwhelming on their 6 through 8 that it's presented a lot of issues. And some of this is Peyton's development. Some of this is Christian's development. Some of this is Reggie Jackson, his body, his fit, all that stuff. It's all in there. All of it's together. Young players, Zeke Naji's development. He signed an 8-year, $32 million deal. Some of this, the 3 picks they have, none of them have turned into blue chips yet. But I think that was his vision. So if we're in a situation now where Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon, and KCP are there, and they're locked in, and they were clearly the best starting 5 in basketball aside the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know how much more people want to buy into net rating and all that stuff. And then they're just, remember, even in game 2, Matt, they were down 8, and then Joker goes out the game, and it's a 16-point game out of nowhere, basically. They just can't sustain things versus really, really good teams. And I think some of this is, we talked about like the salary comp. The Nuggets have $500 million in their starting 5. We talk about this a lot. Sure, that's true. But I think the Boston Celtics, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves, whether it's Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Monte Morris, they're just options. To Kyle Anderson, there are options that people have that I think illuminate into, if they do need something to kind of help them in their starters, help them gather momentum, maintain momentum, get back into games in a playoff setting, more fresh bodies that can play. That helps. But ultimately, the starters have to be better. They've been losing their minutes in the first 2 games of this series too. So that's the biggest thing. The formula doesn't work if they don't dominate their minutes or win their minutes. But I don't think that this is a blowback on Malone. But I said Ryan Blackburn. I said that I think Jamal Murray will have 3 playoffs in the last 4 years that have been altered because of his injuries, and I don't think that's fair at all on him. Joker ultimately has to be the best player and lead the way. He's the all-time great. But I think it also is just something that, Jamal, not his fault. 21, ACL injury, 22, maintaining and the ATL injury. Last year, he was great. And then this series so far, he's averaging 12.5 points per game. And he is the most inefficient volume scorer in the playoffs right now. Again, largely due to the calf, and also due to some other things he's dealt with. So I understand the context behind it. This is not who he truly is. But I do think that if they're in this situation right now and Jamal is playing this poorly, like in game 1, Matt, if he's had a better first half, are they in that situation in the second half? Do they have a bigger lead when they close out that third quarter? Are they in a better situation in the fourth quarter? You just don't know. So I just think that there are going to be some people that have to answer to this. I think it's mostly going to be Calvin, just because they're going to need additional help. But I also do think, I don't know if Malone is going to be in that situation as of right now coming off a title. That's just me, though.
So Teledan Hogan says they both said they were planning for 2 or 3 and 5 years, not back-to-back. They're on schedule according to their metrics. Rob Sheldon says, Booth has not failed, y'all. Did anybody listen to him last offseason? So this is what I think is kind of interesting, is that Booth said, Calvin said, that, hey, we may not go back-to-back, but we want to be able to extend the window 3 to 5 years. But if you have a result like this, it prompts the question of necessary changes, because the equation looks different than it did last summer, and it looks different than it did at the end of the regular season. It looks different than it did at the end of the Lakers series. And so there will be a cost, but I disagree. Like, I don't think that Calvin winds up taking the blame for this because of one, the starters, and because of two, look, the cap was limited. What are you supposed to do with this? You mentioned the Wolves, and I do think it's a relevant point that one of the things that I would kind of point to is less about the players that are in like, it is not that Christian is not good. It is not that Peyton is not good, because I actually am like way higher on Peyton than I was to start the season. Like, I am in on Peyton Watson. Reggie, I think, was a little bit predictable. He had to carry a big load. He played 82 games. His body wore down. Like, I've just seen this. Like, this is what happened to Will Barton. Like, he was a good player. He had to play too much. He wore down. This is bad. But what I will say is there's no redundancy in this roster. And it's tough because you can go too far and you can have just all the same guys. And then it's like, yeah, but you don't have any different look you can throw out there. But the Nuggets somehow don't have either. They don't have a different look they can throw out. Like, they don't have fundamentally different lineups that they can throw out there. And they don't have any redundancy. The Wolves, if Jaden McDaniels is struggling or in foul trouble or hurt, Nickeil Alexander-Walker slides right in. Mm-hmm. If Karl Anthony Towns is hurt or in foul trouble, Naz Reid slides right in. Peyton can't really replace KCP, AG, or MPJ. Christian can't really replace KCP, AG, or MPJ. Like, he's somewhere in between KCP and AG. Mm-hmm. And there's stuff that he can do, but not at the same level, in part just because he's young, but like, just can't really redo that. Reggie is a little bit redundant on Jamal, but it's like, it's such a huge drop off that it's not really meaningful. Like, Reggie and Jamal, I don't think are necessarily vastly different players in their approach or what they bring in terms of skill, like talents, but the drop off is so massive that it's like.
Do you feel like that they had more malleability the year before with Bruce Brown and Jeff Green?
Yes. Yeah. Bruce in particular. Like, Jeff yeah. I loved, and Jeff had moments, right? And where it was like, hey, we need strength on the floor. Let's put Jeff in.
He closed out game 4 in Miami, didn't he?
Yeah. And Bruce was just massive because you could put a second ball handler on the floor next to Jamal. That was also a high level defender. And you could go to like Bruce, you could do Jamal, Bruce, KCP. Like, you had all this malleability, and they just do not have that. Yeah. But also they were limited in terms of the cap. And so it brings the question. And this is one of the issues is I do believe in the NBA that if you're not getting better, that you're going to spiral out. It's just like where the league is. And this is part of the problem. And this honestly was kind of some of the things that I was trying to get at this year. The Nuggets were not so good that they can just be like, this is not Tony Parker. This is not Tony Parker, Monty Ginobili, Tim Duncan.
Well, they also never won back-to-back either.
Yes. Good. Great point. But also you could just like run that back over and over and over and over again. This isn't that. They're great. They're not that. That's 3 Hall of Famers, right? And so I think that kind of managing those dynamics, I think, is really tough. So I do think, like, look, I think there's probably going to be a little bit of like, and this is going to be the question is, if the front office still believes in Pickett and Strother and Peyton and Christian and the young guys, if they still believe in them, if they're not like, okay, yeah, maybe we thought these guys were different, or if they're just like, no, you just didn't play them, like that's on the coaching staff, then that's going to.
Do you think that's a responsible perspective on your end, not from the front office? Do you think that actually is a well thought out, articulate? If Jalen Pickett, if he plays more, if Hunter Tyson maybe plays more, or Julian Strother plays more, they're in a different situation.
I'm kind of the opinion that the NBA, when you're at that level, it's kind of Darwinian. If you play so well in the G League that the coaches are like, guys, you should send him up. We can't do anything with him. Like, there's no point for him to be here. Right. Then it's like, okay. And maybe that happened. Maybe Pickett's been so good that the coach is like, oh yeah, he can play. And they're just not. But these are the kind of complicated things because, like, look, ego is such a huge part of the NBA. It's just a huge part of the NBA. And like, look, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we come out of this and the if they get swept, the presser on Monday is literally just Booth being like, look, we got hurt. We know we have to re-examine some things. We're going to, we have to get better, but we have faith that we can do that. And we're not going to do anything drastic. I just don't necessarily think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get swept either. I think I've seen a lot of smoke. I think it's more people that sound like they're hopeful it happens for the sake of the narrative. But from a basketball standpoint, I just think there are just so many things that are on the Nuggets side. But they just, and that's why for me, everything starts between your ears. Like what you think and how you approach things is dictates so much of your overall success level. Your attitude, your effort, and your preparation. That dictates typically your outcome. And so I think for them, it's like, the level of preparedness they're going to have, Michael Malone's going to have them prepared. Their effort they're going to have to give is going to have to be better than anything they put forth in this playoff so far. And then it's going to be their execution. Are you willing to do the work? And then that typically has earned them wins. And if they lose close games that are just like the Wolves are just better right now, then that's different. But, getting out executed, out hustled, out worked, that just can't be the story.
All right, up next, we'll make some predictions for game 3. Are the Nuggets going to do this, or are they going to go quietly into that good night? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Nuggets. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us on a Friday. Appreciate you guys being with us for Swipe and Gripe, segment 3 here on a Friday. The Nuggets are winning game 3. Period. End dot. They're winning game 3. I thought about a lot about this over the last couple of days. I thought a lot about it. I think if the game was normally scheduled, I think if this game was back on Thursday night, like it probably honestly should have been, then I think the Nuggets lose. They've had 4 days to sit and think about this. They've had 4 days. They had 2 days to basically sit and wallow with their failure in game 2. I hate the way they responded to game 2. I hated it from Joker's comments and about like, well, we'll see. I hated it. I hated Jamal Murray slinking out of the building. I hated the next day him saying, you got any questions about basketball after his embarrassing display with throwing stuff on the court? Malone basically being like, I don't know if I can trust these guys in terms of they say they're ready. Deeply concerning. All of these things are very concerning. But I try and remind myself that what I see from them is not who they are. That I get a fraction of them, and it's not reflective of their character. This is a team, I believe in Aaron Gordon. I believe in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. God help me, I believe in Michael Porter Jr. I believe in Nikola Jokic, if only because I believe in Nikola Jokic's absolute steadfast dedication to always confounding expectation. No matter what, he is always against what you want him to be. You want him to show love and passion? Nope, he's removed and distant. You want him to be this cool, oh, he just doesn't even care about basketball. He's emotive and talks about how much he loves the game. He is always, if I went into a press conference and I was like, Nikola, is the sky blue? He'd be like, of course not, it's purple. That's how he's wired. And like, I don't think he cares about these interactions, but I also don't think that that means that this stuff is not going to prevent him from making the adjustments. And there is just as likely a strong likelihood that he comes out in game 3 and demolishes them as he whimpers away and does nothing. I don't think the results and play of game 2 or game 1 dictate how Joker plays game 3. They might dictate game 4 if they lose. All of this may not be enough. But it really is as simple as I said in the first segment. What if they come out and they just hit shots? And now all of a sudden Minnesota's down. Now they come back. They are great in the second and third. I've talked about that since the start of the series. But the Nuggets get back to closing games well. If all that comes back into play, all of a sudden this is 2-1 and the pressure's on Minnesota in game 4. I said the Nuggets were going to win game 1. I was wrong. I said the Nuggets were going to win game 2. I was wrong. And that makes everything in me want to be like, you got to give it up, man. You just can't be wrong twice and then think that, and then believe in them a third time. I'm not there. I think they win game 3, Swipa.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to who they actually are. This is an eerily similar feeling to game 3, Utah Jazz 2020. Like that kind of, everybody's like, are they really this team? Like, do they really feel this way? I think Jokic talked about this all the time. Maul's talked about this too. It's definitely a lot on what happens to them, like how the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Clippers, how they respond. But on the other end of this, the other side of this is that they have also said it's not about what other people do. It's about us. It's about our process. And again, they were picked to win the series for a reason. They were the better team, depending on how you would argue that, in the regular season for a reason. They won the title last year for a reason. They are going to have to come out and show something that I honestly have not seen them show consistently through this playoffs. And there's a level of desperation and provedness that they carried last year. They're going to have to carry with them into this game as well. And I've said this. I said the Minnesota Timberwolves be the toughest team they will play in the playoffs, period, of who they played. And that's proven to be true so far. But Jamal got to get going, got to hit some shots. Porter, like their open shot percentage is trash right now in the playoffs. And a lot of that's just due to confidence. But if they get it going early, they assert themselves early, then we can get into a different conversation all the way around. Malone needs to be extra sharp today. And then when Jokic leaves the game, Jamal, Porter, Christian, Peyton, or Justin Holiday with whoever, they're going to have to play. Do you think DeAndre Jordan plays in this game tonight? Is that the adjustment to get some more size at the rim?
No, I don't.
So AG at the 5 again.
Yeah, I think it's AG at the 5. Look, I mean, we've talked about this. We got to stop like looking at like these kind of moves. Like it is very simple. Starters got to be plus 10. Starters got to win first quarter by 5. Starters got to win second quarter or at least play even. Starters got to win third quarter somehow, even by a point. Just don't get blown out in that third quarter. And then starters got to close. Like, it is not like, I don't care about the bench at this point. I really don't. Like, I think Reggie may not play based off of the injury. And so this is going to be a great night for the no point guard discussion, because if CB somehow figured this out and gets the ball up the court, which I'm very concerned about versus Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe that turns the series. Like, I'm not so confident in my takes that I'm just like, this is the only way that this can be. I'm never like that about anything. I show a lot of passion with whatever it is I give opinions on, because honestly, like, it's good content. If you ask me like, what's going to happen? I'd be like, I don't know, man. The universe is unknowable. Like, nothing is certain, but I am big. This is what I am a big believer in. I'm a big believer in plot twists. That every time that we think, because 2 weeks ago, it was like, man, we are headed for Celtics Nuggets. There's no question. It's just inevitable we're going to get Celtics Nuggets.
And now we got maybe Knicks Wolves. Yeah. So, all of this kind of leads me to believe that we still have more plot twists to go, and we'll kind of see what happens. Are there any sort of like real tactical things that you wish that you want to see different tonight? Yeah, I think they have to play that ball screen much higher up the court. And I think if Jamal Murray gets blitzed, what they've been doing a lot, get the ball out of your hands immediately and go. Now, they're going to get in rotation. The Wolves have been really good in getting in rotation, but you've got to beat them to the spot. So I think if they're going to really blitz Jamal off that pick and roll, because if the Nuggets are going to try to target Mike Conley off those double drags, look, bring it up higher. Dump the ball out to Joker, dump the ball off to your safety valve, whoever's at the top, whether it's AG, Porter, KCP, whoever. Get the ball in rotation, go downhill, and on top, run. Whenever they get a miss, you're running on the other end. You're getting a cross match with Rudy Gobert. You're getting Rudy Gobert off that roaming spot. And Jokic, when you get to it, go quick, go decisive. You shoot over the top of Cat. You shoot over the top of Nas. If you get Rudy on there, you got to bully. No second guessing, no thinking, no overpassing. You take advantage of what's in front of you. You set the tone. And then, like I said, defensively, you're playing up at the level. Your backside rotation have to be tight. Know your personnel. If you got an opportunity and you're stunting on Karl Anthony Towns and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, always choose Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I don't care. I know what the numbers say. 44% from the corner in the regular season. Don't care. It's Cat. Cat's rolling right now. Play your odds. I rather I'm getting right back. Like, you know what I mean? It's just rotations, sound defensively, higher ball screens. Jamal Murray, again, don't force the issue. Reggie Jackson, please, for the love of goodness, if you play today, don't just run into the paint. See what's in front of you. You're not shooting over these trees. It's just a lot of really basic things. And so, again, a lot of that's going to come down to mentality, though. Like, ultimately, if they're not locked in up here, which I expect them to be, it won't matter. But I do think they're going to be locked in. So, therefore, it will matter.
Are you predicting a win?
I'm predicting a win. I predicted a win already on Player's Choice, so I'm predicting a win here on Locked On Nuggets.
All right. Noah says health's going to determine who makes the finals this year, even more than most postseasons. I'm sorry. You have to be able to sustain them, guys. I'm not going to take this. Like, I'm not going to take that as an excuse. I see all these teams, and yeah, like the Celtics are 1-1 because of that game 2, but the Celtics are probably going to win that series. Porzingis is out the entire series. Like, the New York Knicks are winning, missing 3 starters. I'm sorry. This is the bar.
Julius. Who are they missing?
Mitchell was starting.
Oh, Mitchell and Julius. And then OG's out right now.
And then OG's out. Yeah.
Right.
And OG,
well, are they missing Julius Randle? No. I'm sorry.
Harsh. You've got to be able to overcome these things. Like, I'm sorry, the bar is hard. Like, this is where I always get to. This is why I was hard on Joker after game 2. Being a superstar is hard.
Yeah.
That's why you're paid that way. Like, winning in the playoffs is hard, and it's not always going to be perfect.
LeBron went out with a 35-point triple-double, 14-15 on 39% from the field, but he went for it. And
also, like, do you want Lakers fans complain? Well, we didn't have Vando. We weren't healthy. You want that? You don't want that. You don't want that. So, all right, it's going to do it. We'll see how it goes. I will have a post-game show for you after game 3. I will do one win or lose. And by the way, shouts to the folks after both of these games. Chat's been popping. We've had great views on the live shows. I'll be on after DNVR, so you can check that out. Make sure to check out Swipe Up over at both the BR app and at his YouTube channel, Swipe a Cam. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.